This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
In the spirit of love and truth, we ask our higher power to guide us as we share our experience, strength, and hope. We open our hearts to the light of wisdom, the warmth of wisdom, and the joy of acceptance. And our speaker for today is Jim Y. of Northern California, whose topic is challenges in sponsorship, in CoDA sponsorship. He will talk for 40 minutes, followed by a 20-minute period for questions. And I will make sure that everybody's microphone is turned off while he's talking, which means that when the time comes for questions, you press *6. So, Jim, take it away.
Okay. Okay, so my name is Jim Y. I'm in San Francisco, California. I've been in CoDA for quite a long time, and other 12-step fellowships as well. I have a lot of sponsorship experiences. I've sponsored over 10 plus people. I've worked the steps 12 plus times. And so I have information that I want to share with you. You can take what you like and leave the rest. And so here we go. I'm going to start off by saying that sponsorship, as on the slide on the screen right now, is it can be challenging both for the sponsor and the sponsee. And on the top of the page, I have sponsorship challenges and two people giving a high five to each other. And right underneath, it reads, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in bud became more painful than the risk to bloom." And basically, on each side of the fence, sponsorship is really tough to get started with because so many people are filled with self-doubt and stuff like that. And for the sponsee, their biggest challenge is whether or not they can trust the sponsor to help them go into a recovery direction that can change their life. And so right underneath, I've written down unrealistic assumptions and expectations as to what this relationship between sponsor and sponsee is all about. Not knowing about the boundaries and relationship structure looks like, and then lacking a working knowledge of the relationship rights and responsibilities. These are all overviews of the sponsor-sponsorship relationship. And so once again, there's more than a realistic amount of self-doubt. Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Can I sponsor? Am I sponsorable? So fear can definitely undermine the sponsor-sponsee relationship. And keep in mind that it works when you work it. It doesn't work if you don't work it. So I'm going to go back to this slide. So on these slides that I'm showing in today's presentation, Linda has a copy of them that she can email them to you individually. And so you're welcome to share the information or to toss it in the garbage, whatever you want to do with it. And also keep in mind that I am available after this presentation for any kind of questions, comments that you may have about sponsorship. My email contact is listed on the bottom of these forms, and so is my cell phone number. And so we can make an appointment to talk if that's what you'd like to do. Here we go again on this page, sponsorship challenges, talking about, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in bud became more painful than the risk to bloom. This basically means that coming from your bottom into the world of Codependence Anonymous, people are asked to change their ways of thinking, changing the ways of viewing their life, interpreting their life, and knowing that the way that they made their decisions before just led them to a lot of pain, misery, and suffering because they really didn't have the tools or skills needed to navigate their way through a loving relationship. And so here in CoDA, you're introduced to a new way of living, a new life, new values, new interpretations, and that will definitely lead you towards another outcome or another consequence of how you choose to live your life. The program isn't meant for those that don't want to change or don't want to do this or don't want to do that. Just know that the program is meant to be suggestive only, and that if you choose to practice the principles of the program in all your affairs, you will begin to change, and life will suddenly get brighter and better and a lot more connected with yourself. I've been in CoDA for a number of years, and I'm still hanging around for two reasons. One of the big reasons is that I get to carry the message, and this is giving back through service to be able to get what I've gotten so freely throughout my recovery process. And then, so in carrying the message, it's really a good deal, and I get to pay back, once again, what I learned here in CoDA. And the other part about it is that I'm still learning about all these different aspects of becoming a better human being, or a human being that does not hate himself anymore, but coming up with new thoughts, new revelations. They begin to unfold every day of my life, and that's why I'm still hanging around. Maybe I'm a slow learner, or maybe I'm just a stubborn learner. But by and large, I didn't know all these things before I entered into this program of Codependence Anonymous. Sponsorship is a foundational component of the CoDA program. The primary purpose of the sponsor is to assist and support the sponsee in working through the 12 steps. In addition to providing this guidance, when asked, the sponsor can also help the sponsee by introducing, through the sharing of experience, strength, and hope, healthy perspectives from which to live life in ensuing relationships in self-affirming and self-constructive ways. The sponsorship relationship will also serve to facilitate the recovery journey from isolation to intimacy. This process will challenge and replace outdated belief systems or fear-based living with the growth and development of emotional and spiritual maturity. The reward of this transformational journey is beyond our wildest dreams. This informational perspective is an offer of suggestions, guidance, and understanding for the sponsor-sponsee relationships. And once again, take what you need and leave the rest. So on this sheet, this is all about what we do as sponsors. As sponsors, we accept and respect the huge responsibility of helping the fellow traveler through the road of recovery and discovery during these transitional times. We carry the message by living the program and leading by example. As sponsors, we can continue to work our program and practice the 12 steps and 12 traditions, share our experience, strength, and hope with guidance through the steps. Encourage the development of a working relationship with a higher power. Offer listening and understanding without judgment. Ask and not assume to know what's going on with a sponsee. A sponsor will use I statements, admit we don't know all the answers, encourage inquiry, and asking for help when needed. Exercise caution when dealing with all matters. Avoid being too firm, overprotective, controlling, manipulative, or otherwise inappropriate. A very important fact is that as sponsors, we carry the message and not carry the sponsee. That's really bolded and highlighted and emphasized primarily because without knowing what your role or your boundaries are in this relationship, it can get out of balance pretty quick. So by keeping in mind that sponsors carry the message and not carry the sponsee, this interpretation and meaning will be expanded on as we go through this material today. And lastly, as sponsors, we continue to model and honor existing agreements with the sponsee. So there's a lot of information on this page, and you can easily say, well, what does he mean by all this stuff? So just bear with me, and I will begin to expand on the relationship, hopefully to a point where you understand where I'm going with all this. What we do as sponsees, we began to see that our ways, with which we live life were getting in our way. Without understanding the ways of the program, we came to believe that learning to live life as the program suggested would yield positive changes and desirable results. Together, we can learn to work the 12 steps and practice their principles in all of our affairs, to continually develop a relationship with our higher power by practicing faith and letting go of fear. 3, how to ask for help and how to accept it and put it to use like we've never done before. And 4, how to take responsibility for our own life without playing the roles of victim or martyr. Once again, there's a lot of words here that clearly need to be redefined by anyone coming in the program, because coming in the program, I didn't know that I was playing the role of a victim and sometimes a martyr. And those are just really common codependent traits for us coming into the program. 5, we will get out of the process what we put into it. 6, putting in little or no work and expecting great returns is unrealistic. 7, to work no one's program but our own, to thine own self be true. 8, to be supportive of others because we can't recover on our own. United we stand, divided we fall. And 9, it works when you work it. One question that you can ask yourself as a sponsee is to say, am I sponsorable? So from the sponsor's point of view, are you sponsorable? And we'll get down to explaining that definition as we go through this workshop. On this slide, I have suggested guidelines for sponsor selection.
Excuse me.
In case you...
Jim?
Yes?
I'm sorry. My screen is invariant. I'm only seeing your first page.
Oh. I'm doing it again. How about now? I'm sliding back and forth. Can anyone see this? Going back and forth?
I don't see any movement. I see a frozen screen that says your initial. Well, I saw the screen black out for a second.
Oh. So let me start over again. How about now? I came out and I rebooted it.
Great. I see suggested guidelines for sponsor selection. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. And so here we go. Our fears about sponsor-sponsee relationships are probably based upon old beliefs, myths, models, superstitions, past and present experiences tied to dysfunctional relationships. It's never too early or too late to get a sponsor or to make a change when the relationship isn't working. And please know that this is a two-way street. If the sponsor isn't getting along with the sponsee, that they're going in different directions instead of staying on the same road, either party can make that announcement that they don't think that it's working out. And it's no problem for you to say, well, thanks for your help, but it's not working and I'll see you later. No hard feelings, and it's okay to do that, especially because the primary purpose of what you're trying to accomplish by getting a sponsor is to help, that the sponsor can help take you through the steps. And without the sponsor's help, it's a lot more difficult to work through the steps. Another alternative to work through the steps, but not get additional information because you don't have a sponsor, and that would be to join a step study group, to work with other codependent members and work through the green step workbook, and that covers the steps and traditions, so that you can share your answers, experiences, and learn new insights about what goes on internally with you. Okay. Suggested guidelines for sponsor selection. When looking for a prospective sponsor, find someone that has a working relationship with a higher power, has a program and works it, and has worked the steps and continues to work them. So on the first item, has a working relationship with a higher power. If the person you select to be your sponsor has a working relationship with a higher power, you will definitely hear them sharing about their activity with their relationship with their HP. If they don't have a working relationship with a higher power, then that'll be a big red flag for you to know that, well, this person isn't working with a higher power, so I'd better not continue this relationship with this person. As far as working a program, has a program and works it, again, you'll know by the end of this talk what a program is, what it looks like, and how you can determine whether or not your sponsor or prospective sponsor is working it. And as far as has worked the steps and continues to work them, you can actually consider your introduction to the sponsor and saying, I'd like to talk about sponsorship. Are you willing to sponsor me? And from that point on, you can ask these questions and to know that if the answers are not yes, then it's time to move on. And it's actually more like an interview, not just a unilateral decision on the person that you have asked to sponsor you to say yes or no. Please know that you can actually interview this person to see if they have what you want. So on the other side of the coin, when you're looking around for a sponsor is not your higher power, guru, or authority figure. A sponsor is not a family member or relative, spouse, or lover. A sponsor is not a banker, counselor, therapist, social worker, a nurse, doctor, or babysitter. This next item, a sponsor is not a potential sexual partner, someone attractive or attracted to you. It's very important that you keep sex out of the relationship, and if you feel yourself being attracted to that person, then it's best to stay away from that relationship. Or if that person is attracted to you, again, it's best to stay on your own paths. And lastly, but not least, a sponsor is not in active addiction and not in recovery. To give you an example of this, maybe the person that you're interviewing to be your sponsor is an alcoholic. So the alcoholic can be what they call a wet drunk or a dry drunk or a recovering drunk. The active alcoholic is not a person to sponsor you because they're caught up in their addiction. A dry drunk is a person that's not working the steps. They may have stopped drinking, but they're not really working their program. So they're of no real help to you. And the third person can be a recovering alcoholic. And even this, you do not want to have in your life because this is all about recovery for codependency, not for alcohol. So, bearing in mind, we do these things on a best effort basis since we are learning what healthy and nurturing qualities mean for ourselves in a new life. Progress, not perfection. These guidelines are meant to be suggestive only. It is highly unlikely and virtually impossible to find all of these desired traits in any one person. Do the best you can with what you've got. And by perfectionism, it means that that person that you choose to be your sponsor has to be perfectly perfect in every way, and usually that's highly impossible and improbable. But if you can gather up the majority of the characteristics that you would like to see in a sponsor, then you can take it out for a test drive. So in interviewing the sponsor will also be interviewing you. So keep in mind that these are called boundaries for both sides of the relationship, sponsees and sponsors. They are initially developed and put into place before starting to work together. So just like having a job interview, you normally start off asking questions and answering them by your prospective employer, like what the hours of work will be, what the pay is going to look like, what the health benefits are going to look like. It's not a matter of saying, I want the job, hire me, and then it's a done deal. And then you start working, you find out it's an 80-hour week, and you're getting $5 an hour, and there's no health benefits and things like that. And so just like getting into a relationship to actually find out about the person you're getting into a relationship, it really matters that you find out a lot about that person and they find out a lot about you before going deeper into the relationship. So there's always room to make adjustments down the road when these rules and regulations are maintained. These practices create space to allow mutual growth and development within the relationship. So just know again, if the person is not willing to compromise or willing to see things your way, or they're so rigid in having their things done, then you can know for a fact that, well, if this person's not willing to negotiate or make adjustment, then it's time to walk or not even get into that relationship. When two people are interested in developing a sponsor-sponsee relationship, it's generally a helpful idea to first check out with one another issues, things, considerations that inherently can come up in the course of fulfilling commitments to each other. 1, is there ample, adequate time available that each person is willing to give? So if you're looking for a sponsor and you say, well, I've only got 5 minutes in the next 2 weeks, that is not ample or adequate enough time. Or if you're interviewing a prospective sponsor and that person says, well, I've only got 10 minutes to give in the next 2 weeks, that also is not an ample or adequate amount of time. And the ample or adequate amount of time would depend upon your schedules, and if you'd like to ask around your fellow CoDA members as to what their belief in what an ample and adequate amount of time is, then you can have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. So, what are the best times to call one another or to get together? I work a 40-hour week, and I'd like to have my weekends available to me. When I was new in recovery, I would have any time on my weekends available to get together with my sponsor because I'm willing to change that much, and so I know I needed to do the work to get that information and exposure. And so we'd often set the next time of our phone call or get together before we left that particular meeting in face or on the phone. What is the length of time and frequency with calls and meetings that each person is comfortable with? To discuss negative circumstances that lead to the termination of the relation, lack of willingness, lack of action, unaddressed active addiction, abusive actions, refusal to let go of denial, or whatever it is that may push your button. So within the boundaries of this statement right here, to discuss negative circumstances that lead to the termination of the relationship, my point of view is that if I'm working with a sponsee in the beginning and they don't show me the willingness to do the work, take the action, or they may be drinking or using or acting out with food or gambling or sex, something like that, I simply will say, if you're not willing to stop any of that stuff, then I'm not willing to continue on with this interview process. And definitely, if this person is abusive, I definitely will not take that on. So it took me a number of years, quite a bit of time, to be able to figure out what abusive actions towards me looked like, because I certainly did not have an idea coming into CoDA, because I was accepting a lot of abuse from others, and I was also abusing myself. So number 5, to be in agreement with personally responsible and accountable for your half of the relationship, no less and no more. So what this means is that when I make an agreement with a prospective sponsor or a sponsor and I say, I'm going to call you at 8 o'clock on Tuesday evening, that means that I will call on 8 o'clock in the evening. Simple as that. I don't procrastinate. I don't alibi, say, well, I forgot, or I got tied up with something else. If a person cannot make that quality of commitment to me, I will know that their willingness to change is not enough to help them along the sponsorship path. Then again, if you're a sponsee and your sponsor continually breaks agreements to meet, let's say, 30 minutes before the Tuesday night CoDA meeting, or to not be available because you made a a phone call appointment for 8 o'clock Wednesday evening. And when you make that call, then they don't pick up the line. And so if you're constantly experiencing letdowns in your agreements, either way, from yourself or others, then all that means is that you or that other is not really willing to make the commitment that it takes to carry this process through. So lastly, on this page, after having the initial interview and discussion with one another, you may also take into consideration making a temporary commitment, for example, a period of time, and then agreeing to take a test drive together, check out compatibility before transitioning into a more permanent relationship. When I take on new sponsees, going through the interview process and showing them what I have to offer, my minimal amount of time for this test drive period is 3 months. And I came up with this 3-month period because I can't be with this person 24/7, and I don't know what goes on in their lives during the days. And so by sticking with a reasonable schedule of meeting with them, it generally takes about 3 months for people to get to know each other. And during this 3-month period, I'll also get to check out how many actions they're willing to take. Like going to meeting is an action. If they're only willing to go to one meeting a month, that tells me that that one meeting a month attendance is just not enough to take this person through their change process. If they go to one meeting per week, then we're getting closer to that example of saying that, yes, I want to change, and so I'm willing to go to one meeting a week. So as far as the number of meetings a week a person gets to attend, before they can really absorb this stuff, before they get an adequate amount of exposure and knowledge to the codependency program, it will be discussed pretty soon in another slide. On this page, I have program tools of recovery. You'll see that there's a number of them. And once again, you get to just do a little bit at a time. But I wanted to go through this list because this list will actually be a program path for anyone to follow that wants to work their CoDA program. So we just talked about attending meetings. And meetings are where members share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. Meetings offer us opportunity to share, identify, and solve our common problems through sharing the gifts of the program. Attend a minimum of 3 to 4 meetings weekly until you're thoroughly involved in your recovery program. So this 3 or 4 meeting attendance a week may seem like a lot. And from my point of view, when I first got into recovery, I came in recovery for drugs, alcohol, codependency, and for growing up in a dysfunctional family. And so I used to go to a heck of a lot more than 3 to 4 meetings a week because I was a pretty sick puppy, and that I could really see that I needed to get the most amount of exposure that I could, so that would afford me the ability to change. Sponsorship. A sponsor is a fellow traveler that can help you work the steps and help you with your own recovery program. Get a sponsor or be one when ready. Time is of essence with recovery. So when I first got into the program, because I was beaten down so badly and I was really hurting a lot and willing to do anything, I got a sponsor during the first week of my recovery. And that sponsor took me through the 12 steps. After I finished that set of 12 steps, I got to learn that if I worked the 12 steps again, that would mean that I would get to know myself even better. And so keep in mind that whatever you do in the program, as much as you repeat the actions that it takes to learn about how to get away from your bottom by practicing these tools and suggestions of the CoDA program, that you will become more confident and even more wise in getting all this good knowledge to take you out of that hole that led you to your bottom. So next item is step work. By working the steps and learning to practice their principles in all your affairs, you will experience positive changes happening in your life. The promises of recovery will come true and be present in your life as long as you continue to work to them. Work the steps over and over again until you're reasonably familiar with how to implement them and how they improve your daily life. Some people decide not to work the steps, and some people decide to work the steps only once. Please know that everybody has a choice on how many times they want to work the steps or not. But by and large, the more you work the steps, the more information you will have about how to dig yourself out of that hole that you've been digging all of your life. Program calls are means of communicating with other members between meetings, breaking down the harmful effects of isolation. We can build healthy relationships with with friends and sponsors by making program calls. Making at least 3 to 4 calls a week will make a big positive difference in your life. So just picking up the phone right now, whether new to the program or if you haven't picked up the phone and you're way into the program a number of years, that phone may seem like it weighs 1,000 pounds. But the more you make the program calls, the lighter the phone will get. And so the suggestion of making 3 to 4 calls a week is just that. The more you do these program actions, the better the opportunity you will have to recover from what brought you into the program. Service is a way of giving back what rewards you receive through the 12-step process. Whether answering questions for newcomers, helping out in service positions, and being a sponsor, service creates the opportunity to repay your gratitude. Discover the joys of healing through helping others. Don't miss out on this excellent growth opportunity. You only get to keep what you give away. This statement used to baffle me when I first came into recovery. You only get to keep what you give away, primarily because I didn't know what the heck that meant. But the longer I've been in CoDA and the more service I do, I find that I get to keep all this information and let it grow and expand and develop and get even better when I give it away, as I'm doing today. So that's why I continue to do service. I continue to look for more ways to be effective in giving service because the biggest benefit I get is for me, not so much what I give away. Traditions. The 12 traditions are to the groups what the 12 steps are to the individual. These are suggested principles to ensure the survival and growth of the fellowship by setting guidelines on how groups and members should interact with each other, the public, and with CoDA as a whole. So growing up in a dysfunctional family, which is probably highly likely that anybody coming into CoDA or a 12-step program, they learn to behave in ways that were acceptable in the dysfunctional family. But once into a 12-step recovery program, people are given other ways to behave, other ways to respect and honor other people in a way that is more loving and caring and not so abusive and destructive. And so by learning how to behave, so to speak, in this new light, everybody gets benefit as a result of practicing the traditions. And going into journal and writing will often help to clarify our thoughts and feelings by writing them down on paper. This is something that I used to avoid like the plague until I got wrapped up more in my CoDA program and worked on my 4-step inventory. So starting off, this tool is also used in our 4-step inventory daily 10-step check-in with ourselves or with writing groups. Get in the positive habit of expressing yourself. So this journal writing in plain writing is really a matter of getting your insides outside into the world so that you can have a clearer look and perspective of what goes on internally with yourself. And that in itself can be highly productive in that it's very revealing to know how your brain and your thoughts and feelings operate inside of you. Prayer and meditation are useful tools to help build and maintain a healthy relationship with our higher power. Start now and build upon the success of your relationship with your higher power. Each and every member of CoDA has the opportunity to develop their own relationship with their own higher power of their own understanding. Just because somebody that you really admire and adore has a different type of higher power than you do or you want, it doesn't mean that theirs is any better or that yours is any worse. You get to decide and be responsible for your higher power choice and how you decide to practice carrying out the principles of your higher power so that your life will stand to bear a remarkable change. Books and literature help us to learn more about ourselves and the process of recovery. New perspectives and ideas are made available to this resource. Let's see, new perspective, okay. Learn and implement self-affirming knowledge and let go of self-defeating myths and fantasies. Much of what I thought I knew coming into recovery was really more about self-defeating myths and fantasy thinking. And that's what helped to get me into self-defeating and self-destructive behavior and helped me to dig my hole a lot deeper that I could no longer see the light because it was so deep, and I desperately wanted to climb out of it, but I didn't know how. And lastly, on the sheet, family of origin work. Taking a closer look at our family patterns and influences will often help us know and understand why we do the things we do and why we are the way we are. Knowing these traits can help you to make changes that bring you into alignment with whom and what you really are and can become. Your efforts to create positive change in your life requires knowing who you are and aren't as an individual and not enmeshed with others. And lastly, fun, play, and relaxation. Incorporate these healing and nurturing practices to maintain balance in your life because recovery is not all work without play. Release and celebrate your inner child. So, on this previous sheet, let me go back here. Each one of these program tools represent the different elements of your program. And here I have on this chart, it's called the Daily Program Journal, or the vital signs for the month of. And then attending meetings, sponsor or sponsee call or relationship meeting, your step work, your program calls, and they're all in the same order as the previous topics that I just read to you. Service, traditions, journal and writing, prayer and meditation, books and literature, family of origin, fun, play, and relaxation. So whenever you go to your doctor to get a checkup, the doctor's office usually takes your vital signs as to what your blood pressure looks like. How much do you weigh today? They take a look into your ears and take a look into your eyes, and they do a basic assessment of how you physically are operating in this world, so that they have a record, a baseline record of who you are and how you are, just in case that further down the road they can clearly see that, oh my God, you've lost 50 pounds. What's with that? Or they can say you've gained 50 pounds. Or that your blood pressure is really spiking, because they have a baseline value of how you're operating in your life today. And so in your CoDA program, you also have an opportunity to take vital signs. And this will be listed on this sheet. So the next sheet will discuss the Daily Program Journal. Using the guidelines of the Daily Program Journal will help anyone travel the road to recovery. Please know that each individual, and not anyone else, is personally responsible for working his or her or his own recovery program, or any measure of recovery to happen. A recovery program is like any living thing. Nurture the program and it will flourish. Neglect the program and it cannot and will not support anyone along the recovery path. Awareness plus acceptance plus action equals change. I highlighted action equals change because during the normal course of change, first the person becomes aware of their problem, accepts the problem, and accepts what solutions or measures they can take to get out of their problem. But that takes action. And without the action, there cannot be any change. So once again, this program doesn't work for those who need it. It only works for those who want it. And it only works when you work it. So the Daily Program Journal Vital Signs is on the next page. Place a check mark in the appropriate box when you have used the program tool for the day. After charting your use of program tools, also known as working a program, a tangible example illustrates how a person is working his or her program or not. And once again, this program works when you work it. The program does not work when you don't work it. Take what you like and leave the rest. So we're back to the Daily Program Journal Vital Signs. And whereas all of these column headings represent each of the program tools, all the numbers on the left column represent the days of the month. And so this is how it works. On this page, I'm showing you the program of someone that attends 4 meetings during that month, because those are the days on which they put a check mark. They have no sponsor or sponsee, so that's blank all the way down the column. Step work, they haven't done any step work. They've made 2 program calls. That's a lot of calls for a person that doesn't do a lot of meetings. 0 check marks under service, and so on and so forth. That you can clearly see that this person's vital signs for their daily program journal is pretty lacking. And so I have written down in the middle, working a wannabe program without action will take you nowhere fast. So bottom line of this sheet is that if you don't want to recover, or you just want to stick your toes in the swimming pool of recovery but not really do anything, this is how your program journal can look like. Then, on this next page, I will show you what a program journal looks like for a person that really wants to change and really dives into that swimming pool of recovery and not just walks around the pool. So you can see that in all of the column headings, once again, that this person, for the first day of the month, they went to a meeting, they did some service, they wrote down in their journal, they prayed and or meditated, they read some literature or a book, from a book, and they also took themselves out to ice cream or something. On the second day of the month, they went to a meeting. They did a little bit of step work. They learned a little bit about the traditions, and they wrote about it in their journal. They prayed and meditated, and they did a little reading about their family of origin. So for a lot of people in 12-step recovery, they really don't get what it means to check out your family of origin. And so that's more like advanced work. But I did list it here because it's something to keep in mind that if a person is willing to become really active in all of these program tools, then the person's chance of changing is really great. And then going back to a person's program like this, their chances of changing is not that great, that they're pretty much going to stay where they are. So on this sheet, I wrote down, working an active recovery program can take you where you want to go. So that's it for the presentation part. I'm open for questions and comments. Linda?
I'm here, and in fact, you set me up for my question.
Okay.
I was intrigued when you elaborated on the doing the family of origin work as something that was advanced. I thought, okay, I don't feel like such a failure. But I looked at your handout and the quote there, taking a closer look will often help us know and understand why we do the things we do, why we are the way we are.
Yes.
And to make changes to bring you, when you write, that bring you in alignment with whom and what you really are and can become. I thought, wow, sounds like a promise, man. Would you care to elaborate? Would you give me 3 or 4 examples? Little Freddie became a millionaire. I don't know.
Okay. So basically, I'll give you one example. If you grew up in a family where one of your caregivers, let's just choose your dad. If every time you spoke back at your dad, he he hit you across the face. And so after a while, you learn that, if I speak up against Dad, he's going to slap me across the face. So I know what's going to happen if I keep that behavior up. And so you grow up in life having that presumption that if you speak up for yourself, you're going to get slapped across the face. And so this can be a trigger for you. It can be a myth. And so by keeping your comments to yourself, not only as a kid, but as an adult, you stand to be a really reactionary person. That the behaviors you learn back as a kid to not speak up, to not give your own opinion, to not interrupt your dad when he's speaking. These are all traits that you learned as a kid that you probably take into your adulthood. And so because of that, you stuff your feelings when something comes up and you want to say something but you don't, whether it's a person, place, or thing, at work, at play, or in an intimate relationship or with a friend, that you have an idea that pops up in your head and you say, ooh, and you let it come and go. And so that is an example of how the past can still live in the present. Let's take another example in that you grew up in a family that was somewhat poor. And so you were taught to be more than frugal. You were taught to be a penny pincher or not to spend at all. And so if you grew up knowing that your family didn't have money to buy a new dress, and you didn't know how to buy yourself a new dress because you didn't know how to save, because there wasn't enough money to save as a kid, you had no income, and your parents were on a restricted budget, taking that lack or that big sense of scarcity from childhood into adulthood, you can find yourself as an adult wanting to buy new clothes, but not knowing how to save the money or to spend the money to buy new clothes. And besides that, if you were buying yourself new clothes, you'd probably feel guilty about buying new clothes when the rest of the world is suffering. Do those two examples?
Those are fabulous. Thank you so very much.
Good. So with any of these questions or comments, please know that I'll give the abbreviated version today, but if you want to dig deeper into them, there's a lot more to say about it, but not taking up all of today's time on just individual questions that can be easily answered outside of this presentation.
I have a question.
Who are you?
This is Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hi. Let me see if I can word this right. The purpose of a sponsor is to A, help you through the steps,
yep.
B, help you through a rough time, C, just have somebody to talk to, or all three.
Okay, so number one is first and foremost.
Okay, working the steps, working the program.
Yep, that's first and foremost. And
okay.
Anything other than that is either gravy or inappropriate. Ooh, pretty cool, huh?
Ooh, inappropriate. Which one was that? Was that C?
That's C, yes.
That's
so
C. Okay.
It's kind of like a sponsor can provide solutions for you to take and work through them yourself. But let's say if you're having a money problem and you needed to buy school books for the new semester,
Okay.
And you're broke. You're always broke because you're having a money management problem. So inappropriateness would be for the sponsor to lend or give you money for the books.
Ah, I understand.
Appropriateness would be to say, okay, as far as addressing your relationship with money, you may want to consider attending Debtors Anonymous meetings, where they hit the nail on the head, so to speak. I've often had requests from people to be their sponsor, and what was appropriate for me to say was that, gee, it sounds to me like you're really having a tough time feeding yourself because you're not eating sufficiently to maintain a more balanced weight. You seem to be on the really not skinny side or anything like that, but super skinny side. And so if you're having trouble with your relationship with food or self-image, then I would suggest that you go to a OA meeting.
Okay.
And get that down first before you address your codependency issues.
Okay.
And,
would
no, go ahead.
No. Would a sponsor be? I mean, you're working the steps. You've got a sponsor. You're doing what's most important. But what if you're just simply having a bad day? Is it okay to call your sponsor and let them know, or is it something you should maybe call a friend?
I would call everybody. So calling your sponsor is appropriate, okay, for something like that. You're having a bad day.
Having a bad day.
Yeah, this person triggered you again or beat the crap out of you verbally.
Okay.
And so if you keep calling your sponsor because of repeated bad days, that's not appropriate.
Okay.
So let's say that somebody's stealing your lunch money. You know, put yourself back in grade school, and here comes that bully, and he's taking your sandwich from your lunch bag day after day after day after day. And so what you do about it, at first, it's okay to complain. It's always okay to complain. But the frequency and length of the complaint will determine whether it's appropriate or not.
Okay, because that means you're not doing anything about it. You're just letting it happen and complaining.
Yes.
Well.
Very good. Those are good questions.
Okay. All right. Because at this point in my recovery, I don't have a sponsor.
Uh-huh.
And the other day, I was having a very bad day. Not for any particular reason, just having a bad day. So rather than call my person that's in my life that I'm codependent with, I didn't do that. I called my sister, who has been in AA sponsorship and stuff for 20 plus years. She has in her group, sometimes she has AA people and codependent people, and she calls them twofers. In other words, they're working two programs because she says once they get sober, then my life's supposed to be all perfect and everything like that, and then your life's still a mess. And you go, well, what happened? I got sober. My life's still a mess. Oh, I'm codependent. So that's why I called her and got some very good advice. And then, of course, we had a sister talk. But usually I go to my codependent person, and I didn't do that. So I'm doing good, and that was the first person that came to my mind was, I'll call my codependent person because that'll feed my codependence. So I says, I don't want to do that.
Cool.
I'd rather call my sister, who I know our heads are in the same headspace.
Yeah.
and she can, talk me through this bad day.
So I have a little comment to tag on to that, but I have
Okay.
a quick restroom break, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Oh, that was quick.
Okay.
Okay.
So keep in mind that each program has a purpose. And usually the purpose of each program is contained in the program's tradition. And in the AA traditions, the only desire to become a member, or the only requirement to be a member, is the desire to stop drinking.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where the program is headed. And that's the first and final goal, is to stop drinking. And so a person can be in that program for years and years and years and years, or days and days and days or days, and not know very much about codependency. May not know about eating behavior, may not know about sexing or gambling, because they just want to learn how to stop drinking.
Right.
The CoDA program is all about being wanting to be in healthy and loving relationships. And so if you just take that at face value, when I first looked at that tradition, I said, well, that's all well and good, but what the heck is a healthy relationship? What is a loving relationship? And in AA, you can definitely know when you've crossed the line, whether you drank or didn't. It's pretty simple. But in CoDA, if you have a slip or relapse, how do you know that you did that? In the, let's say the Gambling Anonymous program, it's pretty easy to see whether you're gambling or not. It's a tangible, visual, defining area whether or not you're gambling or drinking or taking drugs or whatever it is. Then there's other programs that are like totally non-tangible, that you really can't touch it, taste it, feel it to really be able to define it. And that's where the difficulty in CoDA lies. And so if you went to your sister who has 20 plus years in AA, she's a lot better resource than your codependent qualifier.
Well, that is why I called her.
Cool.
I also know that my sister cannot be my sponsor.
Great.
But she's my sister, so yes. I called her because, as I said, we're both in the same headspace. Yeah. She's got more time involved than me, but we're on the same path, so to speak.
And so another consideration would be to find out people in CoDA that you can call.
And the funny thing about it is I did call first. That was my first call to one of my CoDA people, mm-hmm. and I left a message. She was out of town and was not able to respond to me. She did respond to me later on in the day. I think it was later on in the evening, and said, sorry, I wasn't available, blah, blah, blah. And that was fine. I just went to, my A didn't work, so I went to B,
Great. So also there's like C, D, and E, and F and stuff like that. So that's like on the fourth item on the list, program calls, in that like right now would not be an appropriate time for me to just give you some information on program calling. But I believe that, if you'd like to know more about this topic, I'd be willing to set a phone date with you to go over this stuff and how you can be more effective in making your phone calls.
Oh, I would love that.
Cool. So there's more to be explored. You're on the right track by not going to that first default person that you wanted to call. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, actually, it wasn't a hard decision. I thought about it and thought, no, I can't do that, because that's what my problem is I go straight to that person for problems. I'm not going to do that. I can't do it. Ding, 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 ding. So that's why I had my alternatives to talk to. And it wasn't any big deal to call, because I wasn't dealing with something specific, in as much as I just woke up and I was just having a rough day. Was all. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So at this point, what I'd like to do is make an announcement and close out the recorded portion of the program if everybody's in agreement. That doesn't mean that you have to hang up or that you can't ask more questions after I stop the recording, but I'd like to remind people that in September, on the 28th, a Saturday at noon, Sally Ann of Northern California will be giving a talk called I Will Keep Coming Back. And on October 26th, again, a Saturday at noon, Emmy of NorCal will be talking on self-love and making the program work for you. So let's recite the CoDA closing prayer. We thank our higher power for all that we have received from this meeting. May we take with us love, acceptance, and hope recovery.